Okay, a couple of housekeeping things before I begin the info session. So one, I have to say that because you agreed to be a part of this, you also agreed to be recorded. There are other people who were not able to come to this info session, but we still want them to have the information. So this will be recorded and put up on our website. So if you feel more comfortable, turn your camera off. But I would like to say that as a presenter, it is nice to know there are other people on the other side of the screen. So we are being recorded now. Also, for those who are here already, this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to type all the questions you have right now in the chat. Don't send it, just type them out. And by the end, when we get to the Q&A, like the official Q&A, if I haven't answered your question, then you can send them. Okay, so just a way for you to stay engaged, to listen to the answers of your specific questions, but also kind of have them ready for when that Q&A time does come. Okay. Okay, I am going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Maggie. I am the Undergraduate Services Coordinator at the Writing Hub. I will be the main person hiring. We're going to have some tutors involved in the process as well. This is my 5th time hiring tutors. It's actually, it's a big process, but it's actually one of my favorites. It not only shapes the Writing Hub, because the Writing Hub is not who we are without our tutors, but I just get to see so much of the student population, and every year we try to rethink our hiring process to make it more equitable, make it more inclusive, and make it more diverse. So this info session is a part of those efforts. So thank you for being here. It really honestly warms my heart to see so many people interested in this job. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who's here, how this is going to go. I do not intend for this info session for me to be talking straight at you for 75 minutes, right? I want this to be as conversational as possible. Obviously, you have questions. Hopefully, I answer them. If not, feel free to ask them. That's why I told you, put them in the chat now. We also have here 4 tutors, Christian, Ivana, Brandon, and Norhan, and they've been here at different lengths. I'm gonna invite them to talk throughout this presentation as well. It's not just like you can only ask questions in the Q&A, so keep that in mind. So again, we really just want this to be conversational. Hopefully you get your questions answered. I can answer questions that typically come up every year. So that's how this time together will go. Okay, so what's it like to work at the Writing Hub? This answer has a lot of facets. It really depends on who you are, right? Because we strive to have such a diverse student employee staff, they're going to bring different insights, different perspectives and of their various identities. And based on that, that's what they take away from the Writing Hub, right? So if the students coming in, they want specifically to do research, that's something that we provide. So that's their main takeaway. If they just want to help students, which is a big thing, right? And that's their main concern, that's a takeaway. If they're looking for a career choice because they're a lit major and they don't know if they want to be a professor, and they get exposed to writing center work, that's a takeaway, right? So it's really hard to say like, well, what's it like? Hopefully everybody says good, but we also recognize that there are different facets to this job that make it valuable to people. And that's what we really want to emphasize. Like it should be, obviously we're looking for employees, we want good tutors, so it's valuable to us, but we want to make the experience valuable for you, the student employees as well, or potential student employees. Okay, so like I said, what tutors take away from this experience, it varies, right? But these are the 4 main things, the 4 things that we try to provide every one of our student employees. First and foremost is writing center pedagogy and education. So there could be a misconception that to be a good writing tutor is you just have to be a good writer. That's it. We hire you, we tell you this is how the system works, and then we send you off and you tutor for the rest of the year, right? We don't trust, or we don't believe in that model. We believe in developing good tutors, right? Do you have the capacity to become a good writing tutor? So what that means for us is providing quarterly orientations. So there's a big orientation at the beginning of fall, like 3 days, 3 full days, 1 full day at the beginning of winter, 1 full day at the beginning of spring. These are mandatory and they're all paid. If you do anything for the Writing Hub, you would be paid for that as an employee. We don't expect you to give time to us without being paid, right? So all of that is being paid on top of weekly tutor education sessions. So in these tutor education sessions, you could explore different articles or research about writing centers, about the way that writing centers approach tutoring. You could be working on a tutor column. I know tutors are working on that right now. You could be working on a project for the tutor conference that happens every year. So there's various things that fall under this category, but we really believe in giving constant education. It's not just a one-time thing. We give you like a 1 hour training and you're ready to go. We really want you to evolve as a writing tutor. And we don't think that happens unless we provide that education and those opportunities. Next is professional development. So this is really like my umbrella to oversee. We really see the Writing Hub as like training wheels for the professional world, right? We do not expect students to come in to be perfect employees. So we want to help you become an employee that feels empowered, an employee that has agency, and an employee that feels like they can communicate with their supervisor, right? So something that I have found is like some students come in thinking kind of like, oh, if I'm like, okay, I would like to talk to you, like, oh no, Maggie wants to talk to me. She wants to reprimand me. She wants to fire me. Could I be fired? That's never the step that we take, right? We're really interested in developing you as a professional. So that's like one of our tenets. That's something that is really important to us. So you can expect that there are structures in place to help you become a better professional. It's just not us saying like, you need to be on time more. It's us being like, what's going on? How can we help you? How can we help each other? Those types of things, right? We offer regular feedback. So whether that's observing your tutoring sessions or forms that you give us and then we respond to them, we try to give a lot of feedback. We try to make that an iterative process, not that you give us feedback or we give you feedback one time and it just goes out into the ether. Like we want to see how you implement that. And we just have other opportunities beyond tutoring. So it's not just tutoring. I mentioned before, there is a tutor conference. This is something that's put on for writing tutors by writing tutors from students all across universities across like Southern California, Nevada, and Utah. But they come together because they're in the work of tutoring students. And there are thoughts that come up from that. So that conference is based on that. So if you're interested in research or presenting or group work, those are opportunities that you can have here at the Writing Hub. Another thing that we provide is a focus on social justice. You might think like, what does this have to do with writing? We at the Writing Hub believe that linguistic diversity is a strength, and there are a lot of ways that academic writing can feel really oppressive, right? Like how it upholds anti-racism, or I'm sorry, or white supremacy within academic writing, right? We believe that. So we believe in the power of rhetoric. So with that understanding, that's the foundation of how we help students, right? So social justice is really embedded in our work. So we don't think of that as an afterthought. That's really foundational in our work. So we're committed to anti-racism and anti-white supremacy. The fourth thing that we like to provide for all of our tutors is a sense of community. So in this environment, it's really hard, right? I wish there were more ways, but our attempts have come in having virtual community hours where basically we just hold open office hours and whoever wants to come and talk. We have a Slack channel dedicated to building community. Like, do you have pets? Can you put pictures of your pets up? And this was a really fun thing that we did last year. Usually we have like a party for graduating tutors at the director's house. It's really fun. We have it catered. And it's just like a time to celebrate the graduating tutors. Because we couldn't do that last year, we had a panel of all the people on the professional staff, and we gave life advice, and we called it Adulting 101. So we had folks give us all their questions about life after college. Surprisingly, the main question was like, how do I make friends outside of college? So it was just us giving our advice from our lived experiences, and that was really fun. So those are ways that we try to have like a human connection and not just like a job that you punch in and out of. Okay, so I wanted to give you some idea of what some alumni have said about their experience at the Writing Hub. So I'll let you read the quote, but I'll just introduce the people really quickly. Lauren, she started at the Writing Hub. She was a second year, so she ended up being at the Writing Hub for 3 years. She's now a grad student in the School of Education at Stanford. And Praveen, he's great. He's actually a professional playwright. So this picture that we have of him after one of his plays is really appropriate. He's also the associate director of a college counseling company, and he was also a tutor for 3 years. So I'll just let you read that quote really quickly, or those quotes. So what I wanted to point out with these two alumni is that the tutors who have come through the Writing Hub come from all different backgrounds, right? Like Lauren's in education. Praveen, he was going on 2 different tracks. He was either going into playwriting for grad school or law school. So what I want to point out is that there are a variety of interests that our writing tutors have, right? It's not just like, oh, they're all literature majors, they're all English majors. We try to have a variety. And I feel like people go on and explore many different things. We don't think that it's only people who are gonna go on into writing center work. This is a time that I'm going to invite current tutors to talk about their impressions so far. So we have people who have been here for 1 year. We have people who have been here for 2 or 3 years. So I just invite those tutors just to jump in and kind of tell folks here about your impressions of being a current Writing Hub tutor.
So I suppose I can start. Hi, everybody. I'm Ivana. I've been a tutor for 1 year so far. I just started this academic year. And what I really love about tutoring at the Writing Hub is, as Maggie said, you're not just, instructing students how to write, but there's also a lot of educational opportunities, like learning a lot about inclusivity and diversity, how that plays a role in your tutoring strategies. You get to read texts and works from students of all academic disciplines, and you just learn a lot about writing pedagogy in general. So I just really love how much I've learned from this position, especially considering I expected that it would mainly just be teaching. And I think that that's something that a lot of people might expect at first.
Thanks, Ivana. Go ahead, Norhan.
Hi everyone, my name is Norhan and I'm a 4th year and I've been at the Writing Hub for almost 2 years now. I started back in 2019 as a 3rd year, and I think through my time at the Writing Hub, I think working with students one-on-one has actually helped me become more empathetic and helped me develop my emotional intelligence skills, because I've had to work with students from various backgrounds and students who might not feel confident about their writing, but being able to work with students and make them feel better at the end of a session about their writing, and encourage them and make them feel as if they are able to become a better writer. It's because I know, like, a lot of times, often when people, they don't do well on an assignment, they often think, oh, I'm not a good writer and I don't think I can become a good writer. But I think as writing tutors, we can help inspire confidence in students who come in and let them know that writing is a skill that they can acquire through practice, and that we're here to help them. So yeah, I think one of the best parts as a tutor has been able to encourage students and inspire them.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christian, and this is nearing the end of my second year of tutoring. I'm a math major, a third year in Warren College. And thus far, I've really enjoyed my time here at the Writing Hub. I think the skills that you hone as a writing tutor are useful for just any future professional, namely communication skills, collaborating with others, thinking critically, doing very detail-oriented work, engaging in self-reflection, engaging with diverse perspectives, many other things. This is not an exhaustive list, just things that are popping in my head at the moment. But adjacent from tutoring, I also think the workplace environment is really great, and the professional staff and all the other peer tutors, just a really great, outstanding group of people. I'm always learning from them as well. So it's been a really great experience thus far.
Great, thanks, tutors. Okay. So I just want to dive in a little bit more into these different kind of pillars that we tried to provide for all of our student employees. With Writing Center pedagogy, I think it's not an exaggeration when I say that students come into, employees come into this job thinking like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. Can Christian or Ivana or Norhan kind of expand on that? I hope I'm not exaggerating, but just to kind of find that like, oh, this is a field, this is a discipline. What was that like for you? And how has that process been in being kind of exposed to this discipline that you might not have known before?
I can go. So I think like Maggie said, I had no idea that there was a whole subset of research and literature about writing centers, and the role they play in especially I know like for the past year we've been reading a lot about social justice and diversity within writing centers, and I've like I didn't realize how big of a role writing centers have in basically fostering diversity and inclusivity within the university itself, and the role that we specifically have as writing tutors in promoting that. So I think that was really eye-opening, being exposed to that.
Yeah, just to add a little bit more, I think I was also surprised at like just the complexity of the writing center community, and just how many conversations are going on like about every little thing you could imagine. Someone's writing something about it, and it's really eye-opening to see that. Yeah, I'm blanking a little bit. I was thinking to say something else, but that's all.
Yeah, and I guess one addition I can make is you also learn about some of the more complexities that are involved in writing center pedagogy. For example, one of the things we talk about when we're training is like how to adjust grammar, because we don't want to perpetuate things like standard language ideology. So it just brought all of these different issues and all of these different tutoring strategies to my attention, and just things about the writing process in general that I never even considered before I had started working in this position.
Yeah, thanks, Ivana, for sharing an example. I was going to share one too, just to ground people in what we mean when we say writing center pedagogy, right? Even things like the approach of, should we be specialists? Should we be writing specialists, or should we be writing generalists? For instance, like UCSD is so unique, right? We have 7 different colleges with 7 different writing programs. So one thing that we have thought about at the Writing Hub was like, should we have just cohorts? Like, here's our 7 tutors, they just tutor in Warren. Here's our 8 tutors, they just tutor in Muir, right? Or is our approach to train our tutors in everything so that they can help anybody? And that's actually our approach, but we've given thought to that. So it really goes back to what Christian is talking about with critical thinking skills. It's not something that we as a staff just decide. We also like to hear from students, like, what would this, how would this impact you? How would you learn from this? How would this prohibit you? How would this help students in the long run? So we try to engage different aspects of your identities, right? Like you as a tutor, you as a student, you as a learner. So we try to think about it in multiple ways. So that's one way Writing Center pedagogy kind of anchors our, like what we do at the Writing Hub. So professional development, what you see here is a picture of tutors presenting at the tutor conference. So I think this is also really unique as well, because people think that being a writing tutor is kind of like language arts space, like your brain needs to be catered towards language arts or humanities, and you don't have that opportunity, right? But there are research opportunities at the Writing Hub, and there are ways to present it. And I think if you're exploring different things, this is just a great way for you to see if this is something you're interested in, or just to present on something with students who also tutor. Sense of community. So what you're seeing here is a picture of tutors who threw me a surprise baby shower. So this is like one of my favorite events in the Writing Hub. This is really nice. So this is right before I went on maternity leave, and tutors just got together, booked the room, made a game of baby pictures. We all guessed who the tutor was. It was just like a really sweet moment, and I think really highlights the kind of community that we try to foster at the Writing Hub. I know that in my time at the Writing Hub, people have told me like the Writing Hub for me felt like a home base. Like I just did a whole bunch of different things on campus, and it just always felt nice to have a place that was like where I studied. Like it's not just when we were in person, we had a study space for our student employees. We had like a lounge, you know, so it wasn't just like you only come here to work. So I think that has stayed with me as a supervisor, like that students felt like they had a sense of home within the Writing Hub. And then this focus on social justice. So this is like similar to Writing Center pedagogy. I feel like tutors do come in, they're like, this is great, but what does this have to do with me tutoring, right? So again, this is really, we're moving toward this being foundational in our work and talking about it. We help students, right? And it's good for us to be as inclusive as possible. And that actually starts with the hiring. That's why we're so mindful of trying to get a really diverse applicant pool. So I know sometimes it feels like we start so far out, but all of it is connected. And I really am grateful for tutors that they stick with us, because they're like, yeah, what does this have to do with anything? But I think like as you stay with the Writing Hub, you see how things are connected and you see how it informs your work. Okay, so here's what we look for in employees. So I know like at the beginning, I talked about a possible like perception that it's like, oh, somebody who's a naturally gifted writer, or somebody who is a literature major or English major, right? Those things are nice and fine, but this is what we actually look for in employees. So one, a capacity to be molded into strong and effective writing tutors. So we don't hire people who are like, they're writing experts. We don't need to teach them anything. They just come in and tutor, right? We're looking for, in the application answers, like, does this person show the capacity to expand into a good writing tutor? We need you to have advanced understanding of college level writing and revision practices, right? So yes, it is about the capacity to be molded into a strong and effective writing, but you do have to have strong writing skills. That's something that all of our tutors have. Another one is a desire to help fellow students develop as writers in the long run. We really emphasize this part, writers in the long run, right? A lot of students come to the Writing Hub thinking that we're a fix-it shop, like, oh, can you check to see if my commas are in the right place? And that could be helpful in the moment, right? But what we try to do is we don't say like, oh, okay, we don't help with grammar, but we try to be like, okay, let's think about what commas do, right? Commas are a place to pause, commas are a place to provide more information. So where in this sentence are you doing that, right? We try to give you like the root of the issue, right? And not just fix it for you. So that's really important for us, like desire to help students develop as writers in the long run. Openness and curiosity, this is for everything, like openness to research, openness, curious about working with peers, curious about a lot of different things, right? continuous and honest communication with professional staff, colleagues, and students. This really goes back to, we think this kind of signals maturity, right? Like, are you just scared to talk to me just because I'm your supervisor, right? Or are you willing to have open communication, you know? Things happen, like say a tutor is late, and I'm like, okay, well, let's have a talk. And it's not about punishment, but like, hey, what's going on? Do you need us to push your schedule back? Is this a really hard week for you? Do you need to be taken off the schedule so you can focus on school, right? That's the kind of communication we're looking for. And that doesn't happen just from our end. It has to be partly on your end as well, right? So that's something that we look for. A commitment to developing professionally. So it's not just about tutoring, it's about all these other things. It's about reading, it's about engaging, it's about talking. So all of that is about developing professionally. And a willingness to contribute to the Writing Hub community, because we're constantly building it, right? And it's not that this is like a requirement, like you have to participate, but it's nice. That's the thing that we like to provide for our student employees. And hopefully, I don't know how things are going to unravel. I know that there are plans to be back on campus, but if that pans out, I'm really excited about that, because that means that we'll be able to build community better and easier. It's been really hard in the online environment. And we do our best, but there is nothing replaces like in-face, like person-to-person, face-to-face interaction. Okay, so I'm getting into like the logistics part. So the first part was just telling you like what we're about, what we do, kind of clearing up any misperceptions you might have. And I'm gonna get into the logistics and things that potential applicants generally have questions about. Here's where you can put questions as I talk, right? Okay, so here's what's on the website. So Writing Hub Consultant qualifications and requirements. So you have to have satisfied the university writing requirement with a grade of B+ or higher of the following courses. So these are the required writing courses in that sequence in each individual college, right? So some of you might be in the second course right now, or you haven't taken it, you plan to take it in the spring. That's fine. As long as you finish it by fall quarter, you're good. As long as you finish these 2 classes by fall quarter, you're good to go, right? You might notice that in 7th, there's only 1. That's because 7th college is new and they don't even run synthesis 2 until the fall. So that's why there's only 1. Just didn't want to perpetuate any unfairness that might be perceived there. But we're looking for tutors from every college, because again, we're looking for that representation. So here are the other qualifications and requirements. So maintain an overall GPA of 3.0 or higher. Be willing to learn and adapt to new approaches for writing and working with other writers. Be able to attend weekly trainings and quarterly staff meetings. Commit to working at the Writing Hub at least 7 hours a week. So 7 hours is the minimum. That was when our appointments were 30 minutes. Now our appointments are 45 minutes. So the least you could work is like 7 hours, 15 minutes. I just wanted to point that out. So like an hour and a half of tutor training, and like the rest of that time, 5.5 or so of tutoring. Because we see if you're tutoring just for like 2 hours a week, but you go to training like an hour and a half, we don't see that being like balanced. So that's why we have a minimum. Be responsible, dependable, honest, and mature. That like goes to the communication part. Continue to develop effective interpersonal communication skills. Be friendly, humble, and responsive when working with a wide diversity of peers. Okay, so I'm just going to check the chat really quick. So I see, what about transfer students? And I think the next question is related. Is it acceptable if we satisfied the writing requirement through a community college? Yes, yes, and yes. So transfer students, yes, please apply. If you satisfy these requirements at your community college, then you're good to go, right? We really welcome that perspective from transfer students, that transfer student experience. So please feel free to apply. What occurs during weekly trainings? I'm gonna let current tutors talk about this.
can touch on this a little bit. I think weekly trainings are opportunity to just keep our education as tutors ongoing, because I think our education is ongoing as tutors. We don't really reach a point where we've learned everything and then we're ready to go as tutors. So I think, just various topics that have to do with tutoring, we explore those in a more in-depth way than we could. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I would like to add that when we were in person, it's a little bit different online, but when we were in person, we would reserve trainings during week 5 and week 10 for Karen shares. So Karen shares are where we just invite tutors to talk about their appointments and like hear from each other, like, oh, what would you do in this situation? Like, not just to hear it from us, like do this every time, but just to hear like how different tutors would approach it. Because we think there are many different ways to tutor. So it's really helpful to hear like another colleague talk about it, not just your supervisor. So that's what we do in Karen Shares, and we bring snacks and we eat and we talk and we generally, I think, have a good time. So that's something that we try to do like in person over the course of the year. Okay, is there a requirement for a year in college? Like if you're within a year of graduating, are you eligible? So we are hiring for the entirety of the academic year. So if you're graduating spring 2022, yes, definitely. We've definitely hired people who were going into their last year of at UCSD. Once a student has been hired, do they go through the process again at the end of the quarter or the year? Okay, so this is a really great question. Generally, we have hopes that people are hired for the year, right? But appointments are on a quarterly basis. So we want to make sure. So our main thing is like we're providing the best service possible to students, right? So that means developing our tutors. So we want to see you improve over the quarters, and as you improve, then your appointments will be extended, right? There is some type of hiring, like rehiring at the end of the year, because it's really unfair to think like you pass the interview process once as a second year and you have a job for 3 years, right? You should have standards, you should have ways of improving. So there is some type of rehiring, and we'll let you know what that is beforehand. In what ways does the Writing Hub attempt to reach out to the larger UCSD community? So this is a great question. Because we're funded by student fees. So that is our main charge, right? Helping undergraduate students. That's why like when someone comes from like, what is it called? Extension. Sometimes we can't help them, or they're like a visiting student. We can't help them. And it's not like, oh, we don't want to help you. It's just because our hands are tied, right? I bring this up because this is what impacts our charge, our responsibility. So our main focus is our UCSD undergrad population. We also have graduate consultants, and for them, then it's like graduate students. But our attempts to reach out to the larger UCSD community, we work with a lot of community centers. Black Resource Center, we're doing something with them. We're doing something with Intertribal Resource Center. We work with the Career Center. We have a lot of partnerships going on. So those are the ways that we try to integrate into the greater UCSD community. We're definitely not siloed. I know tutors here have been involved in some of those partnerships. So we try to bring in our expertise and our experience into helping students who have connections to different resources on campus. Okay, these are great questions. Keep them going. I'm wondering if anybody has questions about the qualifications. I do want to add, because I didn't mention this in the last info session, some of you might be thinking about scheduling, like how does scheduling work? So you have, we require students or employees to work at least 7 hours a week. And how we do it is that your schedule is the same throughout the quarter. it's not like on Sunday you'll get your schedule, right? So that's something that we really try to provide for our student employees, because we realize that you're students first, right? It's really hard to juggle that. So we try to give you that stability in terms of, you know, how many hours of work a week you work every week and what those hours are every week. Is it a hindrance to not have traditional work experience? No, absolutely not. We're really more interested in how you think than your work experience. Is the list of expectations as well as the work schedule you outlined same for graduate student consultations? No, they're slightly different. Grad student consultants have a different appointment. They're not hourly like undergrad consultants, and there's slightly different requirements. Are students able to have other jobs while working at the Writing Hub, assuming they fulfill their minimum hours? Yeah, a lot of our consultants do. They do other things. They're presidents of fraternities or sororities, or part of clubs. They do a lot of different things. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be involved in other activities at UCSD or other jobs. On average, how much does one work in their first few quarters of tutoring? So I want to let some tutors answer this, because I think something that you can touch on maybe a little bit better than I do is like the flexibility that comes with that. I feel like that's kind of an underlying thing in this question.
Yeah, so it really depends, like Maggie said. So the minimum is 7 hours. So usually I work a minimum amount of hours because I have another job, but you can work as many hours as you want from a minimum of 7 hours. And usually during those 7 hours, like 1.5 hours dedicated to the training, and the rest of the hours you are on shift for tutoring. And usually it depends on like the point in the quarter you're tutoring, but usually like near the beginning of the quarter, you'll be on shift, but you won't really get that many students, so you'll have a lot of downtime during your shifts. But like as the quarter picks up, maybe like during midterms and finals, like week 10, you'll get more students. But yeah, it's really up to you how many hours you want to work, as long as you're working a minimum of 7.
I do want to say that there's a maximum. Tutors generally don't work more than 20 hours. Sometimes we've made an exception to that. Say, you know, like for whatever reason, you would want to work more than 20 hours. It's not totally out of the question, but generally it's between 7 and 18 hours that students can work per week. And I'm going to bring up something that a tutor has done this this year. It's very smart, actually. So we're super flexible. Like if you let us know, hey, my quarter cleared up and I can work more hours. That's what a tutor did this year. Like she started off at 7, and as her quarter, as she figured out her schedule a little bit better, she's like, I can add like 3 more hours. And it's like, okay, great. And we can do that. So don't think that it's set. You know, at the beginning of every quarter, we ask for your availability. So you fill out your availability the way that you think. And as things change, you can just let us know. That's why communication is so important, right? We really do recognize your students first. You're not going to know exactly your schedule. So we try to be flexible in that way. But I would say, if I could give advice, like start off with like being more realistic about your time. Like don't think like, oh yeah, I could totally work 20 hours and then do this other thing. And, you know, like start off like really realistic and then move up. We definitely be open to that. I like this question. Are you guaranteed to have appointments, tutor sessions on the days you work, or is it more like you have to be available for sessions those days? Okay, so let me show you what our schedule looks like, right? So if you see here, like, let's just take a look at Adam. His session or his shift is 6:30 to 9:30, so a 3-hour shift, and he only has appointments 3 of the 4, right? He would still be paid for that whole shift. So again, we really want to provide that stability for you, not only in your schedule, like, yeah, you work every week, Sunday Tuesday, Thursday, 6 to 9 every week, right? There's that stability, but also stability monetarily. So if you work 10 hours a week, the pay this year is $16.40. You would make $160.40 every week, no matter if your schedule look like this or if your schedule look like this, right? So I just wanted to make that clear, because sometimes it's like, oh, do you only get paid for when you actually work, right? So at least that's what our budget is allowing us to do, right? I don't know how the future, but for sure this year, that's how we do it. Our tutors trained to help with all 7 college writing assignments or only their own. So this goes back to our approach that we're generalists. Like, we try to help with all types of appointments. So not only, so that's what part of the weekly education sessions are about, is like giving you more context about different colleges so that you can help students in that particular college. We not only help with college writing program assignments, but we can help out with personal statements, cover letters, research proposals, basically any writing project. We say we can help with anything besides legal documents, because if you're coming to the Writing Hub for legal help, then you need more help than we can provide. Is in-person tutoring done solely in the Writing Center building? Do tutors sit at individual tables or a small study session room? This is a great question. And again, it's up in the air based on how the return to learn plan pans out, right? But when we were in person, yes, people had like little stations. We have an area where it's like all tutoring, there's couches, there's tables, there's chairs, and people kind of have their own little space. We try to space people out enough so that there's some sense of privacy. There can't be like a total amount of privacy. It's an open area. But we are sensitive to the fact that people are talking about vulnerable things possibly. So we try to have that space. There are like 20 tutoring spaces. So we have like, I don't know, 8 to 11 tutors on staff at a time. So there's plenty of room. How does remote tutoring work? I'm going to answer the noise level question, and then tutors, please feel free to talk about remote tutoring. So noise level up, there's a lot going on because we're within the Teaching and Learning Commons. It's not just us, right? So our tutoring is right in the middle. That's Writing Hub. But then we also have SI going on and content tutoring. There's a bunch of meetings. There could be workshops going on. So it's loud, right? And we're in the bottom level of we're in the basement level of the library. So there's a lot of commotion. Like, there's people going in and out. I wouldn't say it's like deafening, but it's definitely like happening, you know. Christian or Norhan or Brandon, I know Ivana, you haven't been in the space yet. Can you speak to the noise level and what it's like to work there?
So for me personally, when I was at the Writing Hub in person, I didn't find the noise level to be a problem, even though like the space is shared with, you know, the Teaching and Learning Commons. So there are like SI study sessions and everything going on at the same time, as well as other Writing Hub tutors. The space is pretty big. So like the tables are pretty spread out, and even if you like talk, you know, normally, you don't have to like lower your voice or anything. I didn't feel like I was disturbed by the conversations of other tutors and students around me. I felt like it was appropriate. It's just like background noise.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do want to say that at the Teaching and Learning Commons, tutors, you didn't notice this, but there's white noise going on constantly. So it sounds like there's like a big fan, but it kind of like you get used to it. For the times that it turns off, people are like, oh my, what's happening? It's like so loud. So that like mitigates it. Like what Norhan's saying is background, and it kind of, I feel like, smooths everything out. Like it's not like really abrasive noise. It's noisy, but I feel like it's kind of like a dulled noise. I want to answer this question that has been asked directly to me. How does remote tutoring work? So I'm going to introduce our 2 types of remote tutoring, and then tutors, please feel free to jump in. So we have 2 types of appointments. One is synchronous. where it's like in real time. So you jump on a Zoom-like platform and you talk to a tutor in real time about your project. You're able to share your document, you're able to talk about it and like get help immediately, right? That's one way we do remote tutoring. The other way we do remote tutoring is asynchronous. So we did this, we started it this year to address the issue of students who weren't able to access our services during normal business hours, right? Like maybe they live not in the United States and they're like, I just cannot get up at 8 in the morning or 10 at night. So we expanded our hours, but we also have this option where you can upload your writing project, be really clear about what you want, and then a tutor takes that, records a video with feedback and then delivers it to them. So then they can go over that feedback on their own time. So we have both types of services. Tutors, you want to talk about like what that has been like to do remote tutoring?
Yeah, so with online tutoring, obviously, since you're not, having an in-person back and forth dialogue with the student, you have to be more verbal about your communication. So I know in person it was, there was a lot of reliance on like visual cues, body language, but you can't really rely on that in a remote format, especially, with asynchronous where you don't even see the student, you're just recording a screencast for them. So there are different strategies between in-person tutoring and remote tutoring. Obviously, as Maggie said, I've just started working this year, so I've only experienced online tutoring. But yeah, I've had to learn and adapt to basically verbalizing all of my thoughts and not just nodding my head, but actually saying yes, for example.
Yeah, I would kind of describe the synchronous platform that Maggie was saying as like a mixture of Zoom plus like Google Docs in front of you. So this is one thing that I wish I did before I applied to be a Writing Hub tutor. But I definitely recommend like trying out those different sessions for yourself and seeing what that experience is like. I know before like I applied, I didn't make a Writing Hub session myself. But I think it's really helpful just to see like your experience as a student and like what you would want to do as a tutor if you're put in that position. But yeah, I think in terms of contrasting the remote learning platform versus in-person tutoring, I think the synchronous platform does pretty well in the transition. It is pretty similar in my opinion, but like Ivana and Maggie were saying, like the asynchronous screencast is a little bit different because you don't get to that student interaction. It's really more individualized and like you need to challenge yourself to kind of read between the lines a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this question hasn't been explicitly asked, but I feel like it's out there maybe. Like, what does that look like when we return to campus? Or if those plans, actually pan out. So there's still a lot of logistics to be decided about how we'll resume in person. But one thing is for sure is we're going to keep these services because we see how it makes things more accessible for our students. And that's the main goal, right, is to be more accessible, more helpful to students. So we have a lot to think about in terms of how we are going to integrate it, but know that this is not something like, oh, once we go back to campus, we don't need to do asynchronous or synchronous. This is something that we plan on continuing. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's on the application. So my goal was to have the application ready. It's almost ready. Once it's posted, I have everybody's email address because you registered. I will individually send it out to you so that you know where you can access it. But I want to tell you a little bit about the questions so that maybe you get some insight about how to answer them, right? The first thing I want to say is that we spend a lot of time thinking about asking questions that don't get a performative answer. I know maybe some students are thinking like, oh, this is a job. I got to say the right thing. I got to say the perfect thing. Let me Google, how do you answer? It's like, that's not going to help you because we really thought about what are the types of questions that actually help us see this applicant's thought process and the way they approach writing. So the first thing that we ask you, this is probably like the most like labor intensive thing is upload a sample of your academic writing in English that illustrates your analytical capabilities, right? We used to in the past be like, give us a writing sample, but we weren't like super clear, and we would get like literature or like a comic or like things that weren't helpful in helping us assess if they would be a good writing tutor, right? So we want to be super explicit, like, okay, analysis is something that a lot of students come into the Writing Hub for, right? They have a hard time with analysis, so we want to see your analysis skills. So that's what we're asking for in the writing sample, right? What is a piece of writing that you think you do analysis really well in? So we are looking for writing in any discipline that highlights your ability to examine and interpret evidence in original ways, make and support original claims, and or to connect ideas in interesting, unexpected ways, right? So there's the actual writing sample. At the beginning of the writing sample, include your assignment prompts, right? Context is everything. So it could be a really good paper, but if it doesn't have a prompt, we can't be sure, right? So having that prompt lets us know that you can write within parameters. So you have your assignment prompt, your actual writing sample, and at the end, so don't miss this, right? At the end of the writing sample, include an additional statement where you imagine and describe an additional piece of evidence that would deepen and enrich a popular point of analysis, a particular point of analysis or argumentation. Write 150 to 250 words explaining what that evidence would be and how you would use it. I just want to clear something up because I know this seems really odd, like what is this? So say you're working on an argumentative paper and you're like, oh, I wish I could find a study that says blah, 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 blah. So that's what we're trying to get at. Like we're trying to see your thought process and how you put an argument together or how you put analysis together, right? So it could be a real thing or an imagined thing, right? Don't feel like you have to go looking for a particular article. Like, yeah, I was working on this doc assignment about this and that. And I really, if I had this study on this, it would really prove my point, blah, 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 right? So that's what we're looking for in that statement. At the Writing Hub, we strive to create an inclusive and supportive environment for students we serve and to work in our spheres of influence using our sources of power to pursue racial and social justice. In your perspective, what are some keys to creating an inclusive and supportive learning environment? So this hints at two things, right? Like first, like Writing Hub is a learning environment and it is dynamic. We always have to like change to fit the needs of whoever comes in the doors or the virtual doors of the Writing Hub, right? But it also asks you to think about like inclusivity, right? So those two things are really important in our work. So think about those two things, hold those two things at one time for this response. Okay, next, Writing Hub consultants often work with students who are struggling to generate original analysis in their papers. How might you work with the student to help them better understand the process and function of analysis and how to analyze their evidence more effectively? So again, there's no like right or wrong answer to this. We just want to see how you kind of grapple with this question. Like, how would you think about this? How would you think through this? What are things that you would consider? And then describe a previous educational, professional, community, or volunteer experience and how something you learned there would help make you an effective employee at the Writing Hub. So I kind of see it as the fact that y'all are here in this info session gives you unique insight into this, right? Because now you know what we look for in an employee, you know what we value, you know what it is that we try to get out of student employees and what we try to provide. So then think about yourself and what experiences you've had that you think will add to that. Okay, I just want to check the chat. Since you're keeping the virtual appointments as well as in-person appointments, would you consider hiring someone for virtual only, or do applicants need to be available for both virtual and in-person if we're back in person in the fall? So we're still figuring that out. We feel like it wouldn't be right to be like, nope, you have to be back. That seems really unfair, right? So we're just adapting as mandates come down to us from the university. So what we see right now is that the hiring process is going to be completely online. The training that we're going to do for new hires that will happen over the summer is going to be completely online. And then hopefully by then we'll know. But we're not we're not in a position, and we wouldn't want to do this, to just tell a tutor like you have to be here in person. If not, you don't have a job anymore. We would find a way for you to still be an employee if you are hired in this process. Could the writing sample be something we submitted in one of our college writing classes? Yes, absolutely. As long as we see your analytical skills. And I just want to say, with this answer, it doesn't have to be just your college writing program. You can, if you've done something like a, I don't know, literature review or a linguistics essay, I don't know, and it shows analytical or argumentative abilities, that would work too. By when would be expected to submit our application? Hold on to that question. I will go through a rough timeline with y'all. Is the training over the summer or spring quarter? Also in the timeline, so that's coming up. I just want to stay here for a second if there are any questions pertaining to the application questions, if there are any more. Yes, to the creative analytical essay as a sample. Do personal statements count for a sample of writing? So personal statements are interesting because the purpose of a personal statement is to show who you are as a person, right? So I'm not sure that would give us enough to analyze in terms of what your capabilities are with argumentation and analysis. So I do want to say there are other questions on the application. These are just the substantive ones, the ones you have to think about, right? Of course, we're asking like, what's your name? What are the pronouns you prefer? When do you graduate? All of that is in there, right? These are the ones that you're like, this is what the hiring panel, this is what we look at. Like, how do they think, right? Okay, so here's the rough timeline. So the application should be up really soon, like if not tomorrow, like sometime this week, and I will email everybody who has come to the info session the link, but it will also be on our website. So applications are due the end of week 1 of spring quarter. So you have this week, week 10, finals week, spring break, and week 1. So just, keep that in mind. How much time is it going to take you to think through those questions, right? Don't wait till like the first of spring quarter to think about this. Then we need time to go through all the applications. Some years we've had 80 applications, some years we have 220. So we just never know. We just never know how many we're going to get. So we gave ourselves enough time to go through them. And so if you are selected for an interview, those would happen in week 7 and 8 of spring quarter. And they would be group interviews. They wouldn't be one-on-one interviews. And then if you are hired, then onboarding happens between week 9 and finals week. We have a new pay system at UCSD. So for you to be approved to be entered into this system, it takes a while. So that's why I have here week 9 to finals week, but you don't have to do anything. It's just that's how long the whole process takes. What you would do is like 15 minutes with an HR person to fill out paperwork. Okay, and then going back, like when would training start? So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, think back, tutors, to when you were first hired, like so many tutors were like, but how do I tutor? And we'd be like, okay, we're going to tell you, just sit tight. We're just going to give you all of this context first, right? So we're not going to just throw you into tutoring, right? So summer is when we train you. This is when those education sessions start, but we call it immersion. So we're immersing you into the Writing Hub culture, into the Writing Hub way of thinking, right? And that'll start in summer session 1. So first day is like June 28th. I highly doubt we'll start right on the first day, but sometime that week. And it would be like 3 to 5 hours a week commitment if you're hired, so that you can do training with us. You can do some other type of work related to getting you ready to tutor in the fall. You might do some tutoring, it depends. We're looking to hire like 25 to 30 tutors. So that's a lot of tutors to tutor in the summer, right? So we can't guarantee everybody will have tutoring experience, but we're thinking about how do we provide that experience, but also give you enough training so that you're ready to tutor by the fall. And then you have fall orientation. This is for all tutors. September 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So this is where we kind of reset for the year. We set our goals as a staff. We talk about what we're focusing on that year. We talk about writing centered pedagogy. We talk about social justice work. We talk about the different colleges. There's so much to go over, right? So it's a lot. It's 3 days and it's mandatory. That's something that you need to go to, but that's why we try to give you those dates as soon as in advance as possible so that you can put that in your calendar. Okay. So should we do personal statements count? Oh, answer that. Should we have a cover letter? No, you don't need to worry about a cover letter. You don't need to worry about a letter of recommendation. We do look at those. Those are important, but I would say it's secondary to your actual answer choices, or I'm sorry, answer responses, right? We look at that to make sure there's no red flags, but we're pretty sure if you get a rec letter, then, you know, they have some good things to say about you. Generally, we try to just stick to the application answers. That's a fair way to do it, right? Everybody has the same opportunity to tell us why they think they would be a good employee. What happens if your training conflicts with orientation leader duties? Would it be possible to reschedule with the Writing Hub, or would that time conflict disqualify me? These are great questions. This is why we have an info session. So we have different options. Right now we have 4 tutor education session times. It's kind of a nightmare for the person who runs them, but it's flexible for our tutors, right? So they can choose, like, can you come Tuesday in the morning, Wednesday in the afternoon, Thursday in the morning, Thursday in the afternoon. So there are definitely options. And we try to be flexible with our current staff. You know, it's not like those days are set. So that's not something to disqualify you, and you shouldn't feel like it would. Any more questions with the timeline? Okay. These are pictures of some of our tutors in the past. Yeah. Think about any questions that you might have had at the beginning that weren't answered already. Let me think. Is there anything, tutors, that you wish you knew as tutors? Maybe I'll pose that question. Is there anything that you wish you knew going into the process, things that you wish you knew while you were applying? Like Brandon had a good suggestion of like actually coming to the Writing Hub and seeing what our services were. That's good. Any other thoughts about applying, or how was it for you? Every year is a little bit different. But what are some things that might be helpful to know?
This is kind of cliche, but honestly, like in the answers, just be yourself, and, you know, don't feel like, oh, you know, I don't have any experience tutoring or teaching. And, you know, I don't have any work experience. I don't have much leadership experience. Don't really worry about what you don't have, and just talk about what you do have and what you're passionate about, and like how you see yourself, you know, developing through this job, and what you can offer the job and what the job can offer you. And also for the interviews part, like I know I have social anxiety, so like I was a bit worried about the interviews part. But I think that, again, don't like over prepare for it. Like just think of it as a conversation, especially for the group interviews. Again, cliche, but just be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not.
Yeah, kind of related to what Norhan was saying, I think just making sure that like, I think there's like a lot of anxiety or like maybe imposter syndrome that people feel, especially when like you're not really sure what the job really entails. And, like even when you do get the job, like Maggie was saying, like one of the first questions everyone has, like, how do I become a tutor? Like I still don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm hired. So I think it's like your experience as a student and like in these writing programs, like I think that's the most valuable thing, as long as you're being like reflective about your process about writing, or like what do you want to learn and get out of this. position. I think really being inquisitive and like, yeah, just like really reflective. I think that's one of the key traits that a lot of that's one of the key traits that the Writing Hub really enjoys in tutors, I think, or like is looking for in tutors, because you do really need to be reflective about yourself, but then also during sessions, of course. So just I think just know that you have that experience already. Like, don't feel like you're not qualified, because I think the greatest experience that you do have is being students, and of course everyone here already has that. So
And then to branch off of that, one thing I think is really, really important is don't think you have to be a better writer than the students that you're tutoring. And I feel like I can't emphasize this enough, because one misconception I had was that, oh, I need to teach students how to write. That's not necessarily the case. The main objective of tutors is to have a back and forth conversation, a dialogue, and collaborate with the student to help them reach their own insights. That doesn't mean you have to be a better writer than the students you're tutoring. Like, I've tutored students that are, higher grade than me. And I know that even graduate students are technically allowed to schedule appointments with undergraduate tutors. I believe so. Maggie can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so don't like feel insecure over that kind of thing, or don't start to feel anxious over that.
Yeah, maybe that just one more quick point related to what was just said. I mean, the Writing Hub by no means is a remedial space. I feel like I wish that I had known that. We're really going to interact with writers of all levels, and sometimes, very exceptional writers. So there's no pressure to be, like they say, better than them, or to be an expert in every genre. I mean, you'll receive adequate training in the areas if you feel like you have some gaps and maybe understanding, but above all, there's no pressure to be an expert.
I think what everybody, what it made me think of is that we have at the Writing Hub, what I really want to share with y'all is that at the Writing Hub, we have really high standards. Like there are a lot of things that you have to go to. You have to go to training. You have to go to orientation, and it is our way of ensuring fairness amongst all the staff. But also we recognize how high our standards are, and we try to offset that by being really understanding and communicative. So that's something, like, I think the word communicative is the word I use the most in my position, right? So I just want to say, like, I don't want that to intimidate anybody as well. Like, I think what everybody's touching on is really important. Please do not be intimidated. Please do not feel like you have to like pretend to be somebody in order to get this job. We're really looking for like sincere, honest attempts to be good tutors, right? And the way that I see a good writing tutor, honestly, I've thought about this a lot. You're not like, yeah, you need to be a good writer, but you need to be a good explainer. And we teach you how to explain things to people. So maybe in your head, you're like, oh, I know how I need to tell you how to use a kaba, but I'm not sure, like we try to teach you that. Or like, I know that this analysis isn't good. Like, your job is not to be like, this analysis is not good. Like, you need better analysis. Your job is to be like, okay, what's the purpose of analysis? What is it doing for you in this paper right now? Like, that's what Ivana is talking about with collaboration, right? It's not about like, you tell them like, oh, write this according to blah, blah, blah. That's not what we ask you to do. So don't put that pressure on yourself. So don't put that pressure on yourself now as an applicant or as an employee, but also don't be scared off by all the high standards we have. We feel the fair way to tell you about our mandatory dates is to tell you upfront. So you can say like, that's not going to work for me. Like, that's fine. That's okay. You're students, but we tell you so that you're prepared, not so that you're intimidated by like how intense this job is, right? Okay, so keep an eye out on writinghub.ucsd.edu. You will find the link to this application under employment opportunities under who we are. Okay, but also, like I said, once it is up, I'll send you a link individually because I have all of your email addresses. If you have any more questions, you can email me personally. So I'm just gonna put my email in the chat here. Okay, I'm happy to stay behind. We were finishing like a couple of minutes early. If anybody has like specific questions that you want to ask me, I'll definitely stay behind. But thank you so much for sticking with me. It's really important that we tell students like what it is that we're looking for. So hopefully you found this insightful. Hopefully this helps you in some way fill out the application. And I'm super looking forward to reading all of your applications. So thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm one of the people who came to the seminar, obviously, since you don't know me. And I just wanted to ask about a particular situation because I'm an incoming transfer student. I haven't transferred to the university yet, but I was really interested in this position in the Writing Hub. So I came to the seminar because someone referred me to it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I just was wondering about like the timeline and since if you're looking for applicants for the fall of 2021, which is when I would enter the university, if I should wait to apply maybe after my first quarter and see how that goes.
And you're not thinking about taking any summer courses?
I would probably have to because I'm a part of a transfer program called PATH.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with PATH.
Yeah, so I feel I would have to be obligated to take their summer academy, and that's something that I think would prevent me from doing certain things with this Writing Hub.
Yeah, well, I will offer a couple of things. So because you're enrolled, that's great. I'm great that you found us. We actually try to find transfer students who are coming in. So thank you for finding us. That's something that we've tried to, like a population of the student body that we've tried to target. Because you'll be involved in PATH, you will be eligible to be hired for this upcoming year. And I would say I'm familiar with PATH and what they have to do. All of our events are going to be, what we're going to require of students is going to be online, and there will be options. So I wouldn't say like it would be mutually exclusive. Like if you do PATH, you can't do this. If you do this, you can't do PATH. We've actually have a tutor on staff right now who did PATH, who did both. And she also came in as a transfer. This is her second year tutoring. So we have that exact situation on our staff right now.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I felt that they were kind of an either or situation, so it's good to know
No, it's
that
not.
I
Yeah.
can probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. I'll probably email you, but
Sure.
have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye. Other questions? Betty, I see your question. People who, students who are on work study can't apply. Yeah. Other questions?
So I just had the question a little bit about the timeline, but because it's rough, I don't know if it's something that could be answered. So it said like group interviews will be week 7 and 8. Would after that, does it usually take like a week for people to know when they're hired? Or how long does that process usually last?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. So like the group interviews are from week 7 or 8 speculatively.
Yeah.
So how long does it usually take from the group interviews to the onboarding? Like, is the onboarding when we find out, or do we find out prior to the onboarding?
Oh, I see. Yeah, we would email all interviewees by the start of week 9. So so this is a good question. You wouldn't find out by the HR department. You would find out by us if you were selected or not selected as a writing tutor. And then we would say, keep your eye out for an HR representative to reach out to you about scheduling a time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Rin, do you have a question?